What kind of mother files for an injunction to try and get her daughter's children? LIEnette. In 2014, LIEnette, then going as, how do you say your last name, George?
Crazy
doses. Crazy and doses. Yes, crazy and doses. LIEnette, MLA, crazy and doses, actually filed for an injunction against her daughter. Now, keep in mind, in the Florida courts, she told Judge DeThomasis she has no idea, she's never been involved in anything involved with an injunction. Yet again, debunked. She tried to get an injunction on her daughter for one sole purpose, to try and gain her children, in my opinion. This is her life pattern. And so we're going to dig through this a little bit because this is pretty interesting in regards to someone who claims she's such an incredible mother, that she's raised 8 children all on her own. She's raised 23 grandchildren as a single parent, and yet she's living in a condo with Crook, and she didn't even take his own name. Interesting, to say the least. So let's take a peek at this. So what she does is she files for a petition of injunction against domestic violence, as you can see right here. And it says, I, LIEnette, MLA, so LIEnette, Michelle, Lacey, Alexis, crazy in doses, being sworn, certified, following statements are true. Well, let's figure out how many of these statements are actually true, because I want to debunk some stuff today. I mean, I'm just in a debunking mood. It's one of those days. Why not have some fun debunking? So she says petitioner's current address, and she gives that address. And again, this is all public information, and so you can see the information. She doesn't live there anymore. This isn't anything that isn't public information that you can't receive through the court system as it is anyway. Except I am confused, thoroughly confused on something. And you may see it here where it says race, she puts a C, which is interesting because I would have thought there would have been a B or an A or an E, because she's claimed to be black, she's claimed to be Eskimo, she's claimed to be Indian, but she's never claimed to be C.
Crazy.
Oh, okay. Oh, now I get it. Crazy. That does not stand for Caucasian. That actually stands for crazy.
Cool.
All right. So now it makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that, George. Now I understand completely.
Or cuckoo.
Could be cuckoo, could be crazy. It could, there's another C word I'm thinking of right now as well. So that being said, she says, do you have an attorney? And it says none. I do not have an attorney. Okay, so still no attorney. She's still doing pro bono work. By the way, she knows how the legal system works. Her history is manipulating the legal system. And you've seen her do that in front of Judge DeThomasis. And so this is no shock, no surprise. We're jumping all the way back to 2014.
Definitely not her first rodeo with DeThomasis.
Oh my goodness, no. So first page is a bunch of information, and we've redacted some sensitive information. Or is it unredacted? It's redacted. All right, we're going to go to page 2 right now. And so if we see, who is she trying to get a petition of? Right there. Her biological daughter. Now, I'm going to clearly state there are some extreme cases out there where there are parents that need protection from their offspring, from their daughters, from their sons. This is not one of those cases, again, in my opinion, but I can go further than that because I'm going to share with you what the judge had to say about this as well. What individual thinks that they're fit to raise children when they are filing injunctions on their children? Now, I've said this in the past, I'm going to say this again. I have 3 children. George has 1. I don't care what my children have done. I will never, ever stop loving them, and I would never, ever keep them from coming to me for help, for counsel, for comfort, for wisdom, for you get it, all right? In other words, normal parenting. You always love your child. You may not like what they do, And that is a whole separate issue. If my children do something, they must go through those consequences because they chose to do that. The same way LIEnette is going through consequences for choosing to stalk us. So, but I love my children unconditionally. I would never in a million years even think to file for an injunction or a civil protection order against my children. And we know that LIEnette has done that with her biological daughter. We also know that LIEnette has had an injunction placed on her to stay away from the grandkids. She's lied about all of this. She's lied in the adoption paperwork. By the way, this is one of the reasons why this is so crucial, because there's adoption paperwork that she has pathologically, habitually lied in.
Guardianship.
Guardianship, the whole deal, okay? All right, so last place of employment, LIEnette says she's had none. Actually, this is about her daughter. And she says that her daughter is, man, this is interesting. This is very interesting. Race C for her daughter. How interesting is that? Okay, female, weight 160, BL, eye color BL. What's that?
Blonde or blue.
Blue? Mm-hmm. Okay. I thought maybe that's where the black thing came in. Now, those that don't understand, LIEnette has claimed that she is black, okay, and that her family is black. That her entire family is black. And so, have to do it. Debunked! Her own daughter is apparently a C with BL eyes and blonde hair. Okay, and this is the interesting part is here as well. Other names respondent goes by, aliases or nicknames. Her daughter goes by Nani, which is really creepy to me. We know LIEnette calls the child, a 4-year-old, mommy. How did she end up calling her biological daughter Nani? I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't. I don't get it at all.
Nani means grandma, doesn't it?
I don't know what Nani means.
The only time I've ever heard Nani is when someone calls their grandma Nani.
You mean Nana?
Nani.
I mean, I know, na 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 na, hey, na 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 na, hey. But I mean, other than that, or Deanna na 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 na, hey, Deanna na 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 na, hey. You still can't get Deanna's phone number for all you fellas out there trying. All right, there's a gate of security, and it ain't a futon. It's a Jeremy Hales. All right, so no getting to her. No, listen, Deanna's own daughter put me in charge of making sure that none of these fellas come calling for her affections.
Isn't there a long waiting list?
There's a huge waiting list, and I have to sort through them all. And I'm a busy man. I haven't even looked at any of them
I think
yet.
that waiting list is longer than the Turtle Cemetery's waiting list.
I think the waiting list may even be longer than my driveway. That's how long the waiting list is. Deanna's a hot commodity. What can I say? All right, it goes on to say, has petitioner ever received or tried to get an injunction for protection against anything in the past? And she says no. We know this is not true based on what we already know about other cases. That's page 2. Let's jump over to page 3, okay? Page 3. What has happened in the case? If yes, she says no. Describe any other case. She says none. Okay. What did Nani, I'm just going to go with Nani, okay? What did Nani do? LIEnette checks off a few different things here, okay? LIEnette checks off a few different things. She says she committed or threatened to commit some type of bad things. I'm going to choose my words very well for YouTube, okay? She did something that could be hurtful, well, physically hurtful, okay? And it goes on to say that any, a lot of these words I'm not gonna say. And then B, she says she previously threatened, harassed, stalked. Oh my goodness, this woman saying that somebody is stalking her when this woman stalks everyone.
That's what she said about you in the courts when she filed the petition.
She did. She said I stalked, which I never knew who this woman was, but she stalked me right here to Otter Creek. And then we found out from all the family members that she's constantly stalking them as well. She goes on to see attempted to do some type of harm to the petitioner. And then down to K, she engaged in other behavior or conduct that leads the petitioner to have reasonable cause to believe that she's in danger. All right, so that is page 3. We're looking at the full page 3 right here. We're going to jump over to page 4. Now, this is where it gets extremely interesting because page 4, LIEnette goes on with one of her rants in one of these crazy paragraphs. LIEnette says, on May 14th, Nani, since daughter their... Oh my goodness. How in the world am I going to make sense of this? Okay, just bear with me, okay? I realize C stands for crazy, and C also stands for incompetent. She just spelled C wrong. She forgot to put the N before the C on the incompetent. So she writes on May in 2014, since daughter there, which is THER. No, daughter plus. Oh, okay, that's a plus. Since daughter plus her BF, haired mound, BF have moved to Florida plus stayed at our condo. She has on more Tran several times, got in my face, screamed at me, called me names.
That's what she says about you, that you scream at her.
Cussed at me, tells me to effing... Hold a second. This is the exact same stuff that the Otter Creek residents witnessed LIEnette saying on a daily basis and John Crook saying on a daily basis around and sometimes to a child. Okay? All right? Tells me to F blank, 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 quack, etc. She is violent to the little ones in the home. Tells them she's gonna knock their effing teeth out. You know what you do to a drum? You beat a drum. It says beat them. She grabs them, tells the 14-year-old going to hooah in the effing mouth. By the way, I don't believe any of this. This is from LIEnette. And you're gonna see what the judge had to say about it as well. Calls her effing stupid. She's been doing this ongoing for several years. This is interesting coming from LIEnette. Oh my goodness. From the woman that can't keep her mouth shut and the vulgarity just spills and spews out to her own biological children and those that she's not related to. And Crook, which by the way, she's supposed to be married to Crook at this point in time, which they then divorced. Why did she have the last name of Crazy and Doses? I thought it was Preston. How many times is this woman going to change her last name? I mean, I don't get it. Nobody truly knows what her legal name is. And here's the other thing with the adoption paperwork. She signs 2 different names. Completely 2 different names on the adoption paperwork.
Well, in this injunction too.
And in this plea for an injunction. Okay, so she's been doing this going on for several years. In the past, she pushed me off. She stepped on my camper and I injured my back. So apparently she's had a camper in 2014 as well. All right, the kids also get stood in corner. How does that sentence structure make any sense? Get stood in corner for over an hour.
Really? Because she keeps the child strapped in a Jeep for 4 plus hours.
4 plus or more hours. Okay.
That's just as bad as putting them in the corner.
The violence, that's how you say it in French. If you really wanna spice up that word. Violence. The violence has caused too many complaints at our condo. and now they want them to go. They are mad. And last night, she got right up to me and was yelling in my face.
She said the same thing about you during a town hall meeting.
Yeah, that she did, which I never yelled at her. I didn't even talk to her. I talked to the residents, and I wasn't even talking to the residents. I was talking to the council members, stating the dangers that exist in our town, which I have every legal right to do. Okay, so it goes on to say additional information. This and other acts of violence have been previously reported to, for somebody who complains about so many calls to Children and Family Services, this is LIEnette claiming that she continues to call Children and Family Services. She also states that the respondent, her daughter, owns some pew-pews. Okay, but doesn't want me to have any. And says the respondent, this is what really gets me. It all really gets me. But she's stating that the respondent is basically a runk. And was married and still living 10 years later with a runk. The man loves the rink.
His name is Crook.
Even more interesting, she says that her own daughter has a history of mental issues. Now, I've got to ask the question, is that hereditary? So here's what's going on. Number one, there's a few different possibilities here. Number one, LIEnette, who's known to be a pathological habitual liar, is lying. And her daughter does not have any mental issues. Number two, LIEnette is finally, for once in her life, telling the truth. And her daughter does have mental issues. And it was probably passed down from LIEnette, which means LIEnette has mental issues. Number three, no, you know what? That's the options. That's probably what it is. I have a feeling that, what do you think? What do you think? Do you think, George, that, you know what? Let me just keep going. Has the respondent ever been subject of a Baker Act proceeding? And LIEnette says no. Is the respondent supposed to take medication for health problems, mental health problems? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. LIEnette says no, crosses it out, and then says yes. Changes her answer because she's already stated in this petition that her daughter has mental health issues. Then she goes on, nope, no medications. Oh, I got caught in my lie. I better put yes, medications. I absolutely believe this is lying. Again, it's just my opinion. If yes, the respondent currently taking her medicines. And then she says, no, she's not taking her medicines. Which leads me to ask the question, curious if LIEnette, if this is a hereditary thing, what LIEnette is potentially taking. Because we know, based on her test that she's shown, what she has been taking. She then puts out a supplemental document that she has. Listen, we can get handwriting from just about anybody. The world is on the internet. Even if you're the most recluse individual in Otter Creek, there is your driver's license signature. There is plenty of information out there on the internet. We are looking at handwriting, and I know you know that I'm stating that because of the signs that LIEnette did. We have plenty of handwriting samples. So LIEnette goes on to file this supplemental piece of paper here, which is extremely interesting. I was advised today by the sheriff. Well, the sheriff advised her. But we have been told that the sheriff, LIEnette told DeThomasis in the court, I have never, ever had CPS called and children's services and the sheriff and police. This is the only time this has ever happened in my life. This is the only life she's ever lived, constantly surrounded by the authorities, by the sheriff, by the police, by CPS, her calling. It goes on and on and on. I was advised today by the sheriff to add children because, by the way, she's adding the children to the injunction that she's filing for. Why? Because she's trying to take her biological daughter's children. I hope you understand this. And now, instead of her just throwing it in there, she's trying to say, the sheriff told me to do it. I'm only doing what the sheriff told me to do. No.
Sheriff would never do that.
Exactly what she's doing and what she's trying to accomplish. This is her pattern, her life pattern, her MO. I was advised today by the sheriff to add children because they're in the home. By the way, this is the exact same. This is not a supplemental to the actual injunction. This is a In other words, what I mean by that, she didn't file the injunction and then file this as a supplemental document later with the injunction. This is a supplemental that she added with the injunction, which was all filed at the same time. In other words, it was all planned at the same time and filed. It wasn't the sheriff then came and said, well, you need to add that to it as well, and then she came and added it. No, it all went to the judge exact same time. So it goes on to say, I was advised today by the sheriff to add the children because they are in home and it's in their best interest to stay with me, their grandmother, and not with parents while this is happening to them. And so they are not homeless. Children's Protective Services are involved. That's odd because LIEnette told DeThomasis no Children's Protective Services ever in her life. The physical, the mental, the emotional abuse. You mean the exact same things that I'm reading here are the things that Otter Creek residents are seeing happening at Turd Purgatory on a daily basis.
By her and Crook.
The physical, the mental, the emotional abuse to us is too much for me to handle. Hearts on the mend. My new neighbors, what the hell's hearts on the mend. She burns every bridge and then she runs. She burns this is another bridge where she burned and then she ran again. It's too much for me to handle. My daughter threw somebody to the floor and did some not nice stuff previously. And just in January 14th, this gets crazy. This is just crazy. And just in January 14th, I had 5 vertebrae fusion with 5 discs removed and metal plate and 10 screws put in my neck. And if I were to be physically touched again, I could be unalived. Have we heard this from LIEnette before? Mm-hmm. How in the world is everything going to unalive this woman? I don't get it. And not only that, if she has this steel plate in her neck, wouldn't she be walking around like this? Wouldn't she be on her pink Stanley cup with the straw like one of the grossest things I've ever seen in my life? I mean, that straw probably wanted to be unalived. That straw was probably saying, if this ever happens to me again, please unalive me. Everything. I mean, the insanity. I mean, it is insanity that comes out of this woman's mouth. Absolute insanity. And yet we can still see there was either a miraculous operation to where she has full dexterity and movement of her neck and her spine, carrying a child all over, even though she claims she can't even carry a gallon of milk, and everything else. And
on Channel 20 News.
Calling Channel 20 News. Oh, I got my Team Otter Creek t-shirts. By the way, who's the only person in Otter Creek that's ever tried to make money off of Otter Creek? LIEnette, trying to sell t-shirts. Not Jeremy Hales. LIEnette trying to sell t-shirts. There you go. Just debunked something else right there.
In the body cam footage with Florida Wildlife, she was basically sprinting across the property.
Just crazy. All right, so it goes on. Now here is from River House Condominiums. So John and LIEnette lived in a condo, and within a condo they have guidelines and regulations. Now here's the interesting part. Do you think they would get away with it if Otter Creek, if they did this? Okay, here's what I'm trying to say. They didn't get away with all of this living in the condo where there's regulations and people to actually regulate things. And so what did they do? They brought all of their junk, their garbage, their baggage to Otter Creek where they're trying to get away with it. So this says, John Crook and Michelle Crazy in Doses. August 8th, 2014. You can see this is part of the information, the addendums that she filed with the injunction as well. The association continues to receive complaints about the nuances and the annoyances associated with your unit. Does this sound like Otter Creek all over again in 2014? Yes. Yes, it does. The association continues to receive complaints about all the annoyances associated with your unit. In some cases, due to the extended stay of your house guest, and including but not necessarily limited to the loud, the vulgar language, and repeated police visits that have been reported. Does this sound like Otter Creek? Now, I know, right now you're thinking, no, that can't be 2014, that's 2024 in Otter Creek. 10 years later, same people, same lifestyle, same situations, over and over and over again. Do you think at any point in life they would actually figure out how to make it stop and do the right thing? And it goes on to say, it's now more than 90 days since your guests have arrived. And so what the association is doing now is saying, we're going to hold you accountable. Her guest is her daughter and her boyfriend and their children, which no doubt LIEnette was trying to get money from. She's always wanted the individuals in the house so she could get money from them. She sees them as a paycheck. Again, all my opinion. It's what the Hales News. I call it as I see it. Okay? It's now more than 90 days since your guests arrived, and while the rule allowing guests to reside in the unit for a maximum of 90 days was rescinded back in 1986, remember it's 2014 now, we've extended you the 90-day courtesy that the time has now come. You guys need to get out. In light of the continued complaints that we now demand you leave. I draw attention to the declaration of the condominium, paragraph 13A and B, which states, each of the units shall be occupied only by a single family, no nuances, nuisances. I know I'm joking with the nuances, I'm turning it into French, but it's nuisances. No nuisances shall be allowed, nor any use or practice which is the source of an annoyance to the residents, of which interferes with the peaceful possession and proper use of condominium property by its residents. Given the circumstances, I advise you and your guest vacate the property immediately. Your urgent attention to this matter is required today from Peter. So Peter says they're gone. Get them out. All right? And the nuances or the nuisances, and I swear,
kind of reminds me of when she had a guest who the godmother was, and she was a nuance and
a big nuance
doing this around town.
Poo, poo, poo. This sounds like Otter Creek, but it's 10 years before, and oh boy. I'm gonna. This is the signed page of the petition, and so. There's their signatures right there. Obviously, we have Crook's. We've got LIEnette's, even though she can never decide what her real name is.
She signed it Michelle.
She did sign it Michelle, which she also signed it LIEnette. So she goes on. This is page 8. She goes on to say, this is temporary exclusive use and possession of home. She goes on to say, petitioner needs the exclusive use and possession of the home that the parties share, and then she says the petitioner cannot get another safe place to live because I own it with John Crook, this condo. We let them stay for a 90-day period. That's all. You think that's what she was doing with the shed? Was she letting people stay for just 90 days in the shed as well? Okay. And then she crosses off. If kept out of the home, respondent has the money to get other housing or may live without money. Hold a second. She puts in a supplemental thing that says, the sheriff told me that I need to add the kids because they'll be homeless. And here she says, if kept out of the home, respondent has the money to get other housing. Here we go again.
Inconsistent.
Debunked for the lies. Yet again, this is just a ploy to steal children, in my humble opinion. I think I'm pretty accurate, to be honest. All right, And then it goes on to say the home is solely owned by her, the petitioner, and Crook. All right, so let's see what else we have here. Page 9. This is 12 pages. Now, page 9, what she did is she said none of that actually is applicable. She just crossed it all out. Page 10, she said none of that is applicable. She crossed it all out. I'm really curious to see what the judge is going to say. Page 11, she's got some things to say, and page 12 is what the judge has to say. So on page 11, number 2A, she says, prohibiting respondent from going anywhere within 500 feet of any place petitioner lives. She doesn't want her own daughter within 500 feet of her. I just can't imagine being a parent doing this to a son. I don't, or a daughter, a son, a daughter. I don't care what my children have done, okay? I can understand there are extreme cases, but even in an extreme case, let's say one of my children do something horrific and they find themselves behind bars, which my children never have, and I seriously doubt that they ever would. They were raised right. And so, but even if they did something horrific to me, I can guarantee you as a father, the love never goes away for a child. And I'm going to go see them. If they're behind bars, I'm going to go see them. And understand, this woman is the same woman who called the newspaper because she was so proud that she quit her job because she was with a man who was behind bars, who was found guilty of unaliving somebody, and she quit her job so she could do visitations with him behind bars.
3 times a week.
3 times a week. She called the newspaper. LIEnette called the newspaper so they could run an article because she was so proud of herself, quitting her job so she could go have conjugal visits and visitation with a person who unalived somebody in prison 3 times a week. And this is what she does to her own flesh and blood. I don't get it. I don't get it. But then again, I'm not crazy. So how's a sane person supposed to understand an insane mind? It just doesn't work that way. She circles prohibiting respondent from defacing or destroying petitioner's personal property. Well, trust me, LIEnette and Crook don't need any help destroying their personal property. They destroy it constantly on their own. I've never seen anything that is actually nice that they own. She's granting the petitioner temporary exclusive use and possession of the home, which, by the way, her daughter is now a legal resident of. She's been there for 90 days. She's got keys. She's getting mail. And that is the legal definition of a resident. You're receiving mail there. You have keys. All right. L. She goes, respondent to participate in treatment, intervention, and counseling services. And M. Referring petitioner to a center for help. All right, and she goes on, I understand the filing of the petition. I'm asking the court to hold a hearing. All right, and then we get to number 12, where, remember, we already saw LIEnette's signature. What do we see now? Where's the Michelle gone? Now it's LIEnette. Is it LIEnette? Is it Michelle? Who is it?
Which one is it?
Who is it? So we have 2 different signatures. This is just a joke. This is a complete and total joke. And she's done the same thing with the adoption paperwork, which will be contested. So the judge then has his ruling on this, okay? And you can see in highlight, denying. The judge says, all right, I got some things to say about this. The judge denies the petition for injunction for protection. And he says this, the court has reviewed the petition for injunction against these things and finds that the petitioner has failed to comply with one or more of the requirements applicable, including the following. Number 1, the petitioner has failed to allege facts sufficient to support the entry of injunction because regarding the above-named children, there is no factual basis in the petition for the authority of the petitioner to file on behalf of the children. In other words, the judge goes, these aren't your kids. You have nothing to do with them. You will have nothing to do with them. You are not the parent. And then number 2, the petitioner's claim of imminent fear of future violence to herself is not supported by any of the allegations. In particular, there's no date even associated with an alleged push. And yes, he puts in parentheses, push, and the allegement. And he says it's further ordered and adjudged that the petition is denied without prejudice. And there you have active court right there, 8-8-14. Now, if this is how LIEnette treats her own flesh and blood, can we truly...
She'll turn on anyone.
Can we truly trust what's happening with a 4-year-old child?